This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Respectonomics brings you living economics, and living economics is a discussion of current economic conditions. Respectonomics has prided itself on being timeless. Living economics is really something that deals with what's in it at the moment. The concept of economics is that we are looking at household management. That's where the word economics comes from. The economos and the oikos, the two words from Greek, one meaning to manage, the other meaning household. And if we look at economics then as household management, we can start seeing some threads that are either not sustainable or could be leading us into better places. My name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I am your voice of Respectonomics. I'm your year of Respectonomics too, and I treasure people who come back to us with their ideas and their opinions. We want to focus today's economics in two areas that are causing concern. And these concerns, we know them and we discard them, we ignore them, we're complacent about them. But we have two issues that are happening in the major trading countries at the jurisdictions, and that is the increase in the money supply as well as the increase in deficits, government deficits. In a way, they go hand in hand. But the truth of the matter is that the money supply is now growing more rapidly than the economy, than output. The central bank in the United States is now spending, or rather buying, $40 billion worth of government debt every month, which means that $40 billion every month is being injected into the system. The deficits are rising exponentially, and there can be many reasons for it. But what we want to put on the table is this. We're living in a world where money supply and deficits are allowing themselves, they almost feed on each other, to grow without a sense of holdback. The holdback that is needed is going to be political in one sense, it's going to be social in another, and it's going to take an enormous acceptance by people at large to say that actually government cannot do all the things that we love them to do. And whether that translates into garbage collection or whether it's in education, whether it's in some kind of payment that we get when things go rough, there are all kinds of ways in which this kind of spending will need to be reduced. And as that spending is reduced, that is the key to what will then bring the deficit down. I want to explain one thing though. If we're in a world where the money supply is growing too rapidly, we are putting in a measure that allows prices to rise. If there's more money chasing fewer goods, the automatic plumbing result is prices will rise. We talk about inflation. Really, the truth of the matter is the money supply is what is driving the prices up. Yes, there can be supply issues in the more general way. For example, beef prices are rising because the herds of cattle have been reduced over the years. So we can see the price of beef going up. That isn't necessarily a money supply issue, but it becomes a money supply issue when we find out that the money is in fact available to buy, whether it's beef or gasoline or whatever it might be. But we find that as we create these deficits, as we create this new money supply, as central banks start pushing more money into the system, all under the heading of trying to smooth out the rough spots, the truth of the matter is these two, the deficits and the money supply growth, will in fact produce a higher price level. In other words, making life less affordable. We live in a world where we want to be afforded, but at the same time, I think that there's a voice in the dark that we know is there that is warning us that it cannot continue. Leadership today is in a very difficult place because if it does recognize these issues, the way in which inflation is being brought about, it is also the same leadership that if it were to bring this to the surface and to start taking steps, would soon find itself out of leadership. So, in other words, one of the things we have to do is to have a commonality of understanding the risks of the money supply issue as well as the deficits. And that is done by literally just letting people know. Governments are doing a terrible job at being transparent. Most of us will agree that we don't even trust government figures any longer. So it's important, therefore, for a government to be able to tell us the truth and to be able to verify the truth. There's an old expression in the financial world which goes, can you verify your information for accuracy, consistency, and reliability? And a government today needs, or a central bank, needs to be able to verify information, to talk about the accuracy with which it operates, to talk about the consistency with which it operates. Money supply going violently up or violently down is hardly consistency. And then on top of that, there's the issue of reliability, of how long has this been going on. We'll find that this process of increasing the money supply and running deficits has been going on for too long. And it is something that we all know, and I think we all find ourselves becoming either complacent about or would rather not think about, and therefore we work a premise that if we can't see it, then it can't be. The issue is that it can be, and it needs to be. It needs to be put into the public domain for us to be able to see. Here's the problem. What in fact is happening is the currency, whatever currency you're looking at, a euro, whether you look at a US dollar, a pound, sterling, wherever it is, we are debasing the currency. And stop in our tracks for a minute. If we are debasing our currency, what else are we debasing? It's highly unlikely that we're going to be able to stand here and say, oh, we just debased the currency and everything is all right. Everything else is all right. No, when we debase the currency, we find ourselves debasing many of the relationships that we have one with another. We find that we debase loyalty. We find that we debase hope. We debase kindness. We debase compassion. Debasing the currency is almost the alter ego to how we debase our human connectivity. It's time for us to be able to look at the money supply and the deficits and call the government to account, to explain what we're doing, how long we've been doing it, why we're doing it, and what steps that they can see realistically that are going to bring it to heel. Because if we don't do that, the concept of debasement can continue and continue to a point where it actually mitigates against the value of us as human beings. It puts us at risk one to another. It puts our climate at risk. It puts our future at risk. And it also is placing us where we will be not passing on the mantle of success, but rather we will be handing on a burden of debt and inefficiency, a debt of conflict to our legacy and future, children, grandchildren, and so on. It's our responsibility then to pull in the reins, find out what in fact we're doing, slow down, and find out what are the best ways to reallocate so that we can bring the money supply down to something proportionate to the economy, and also to bring the deficits down so that we can say we actually have a surplus. Because when we have a surplus, most people think in terms of a surplus as something that is well worth looking for and is a worthwhile objective. My name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, and I rest my case.